Good afternoon, everyone. I just would like to introduce myself. My name is Tim Dynan. I'm Assistant Director of Admissions here with the Graduate Tax Program, and we'll get the webinar started in just a few moments. So we'll wait for a few others to join, but just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. We will be recording the presentation and we'll be sharing this to you as well at the end. So you can check out our YouTube channel. We'll be posting it there. During the webinar, you can also ask any questions through either a chat. If you wanted to connect with us directly, you could also use the QA is also another option, which we will be able to go and answer some questions that you might have individually. But otherwise, we are very excited to share this. Also joined by our faculty director, Professor Olson, who will be able to share what we have next for the agenda.
Thank you, Tim. So I'll start on the background and the agenda as some people trickle in. So I'm Stephen Olson. I'm the faculty director here at the Graduate Tax Program, also a professor in the program. And I think at least one of my students is joining us today and hopefully won't be heckling me too much in the chat feature. Final grades still aren't in, so I think they have to be pretty nice to me throughout this process. For the agenda today, we're going to have a very, very brief program overview, followed by an introduction of our wonderful panelists, and then a Q&A with the panelists about their careers and degrees that they obtained here from Villanova. As Tim said, if you guys have questions as we're going through, please put those into the chat feature, and we'll try to get those answered by us on the webinar, or else someone will follow up with you afterwards. After we do the Q&A with our panelists, we'll have a very brief review of the admissions process for the program here at Villanova. And Tim, we could jump to that next slide. Okay, so a very brief overview of the program here at Villanova in the Graduate Tax Program. We confer 2 degrees here, a Master's in Taxation and an LLM. The MT is focused on our accountants and our business professionals, while the LLM is for attorneys looking to specialize in taxation. All of our students, whether you're in the MT or the LLM, however, take all their classes together. We find that this interdisciplinary approach is really beneficial to the students, allowing them to learn from each other, but also learn from their professors. And we see that cross-disciplinary learning occurring not only in content being shared by an accountant or a lawyer or a financial professional saying, here's how we do A, B, or C, but also just in the way that they approach their questions that happen during class, going back and forth with the professors. They may have a question that just shows how they're approaching it differently, and everyone gets to learn from that. And so for decades now, we've been doing this with the interdisciplinary approach and find it to be really beneficial to the students and the program. In addition to offering those 2 degrees, we also have 3 certificates currently, working on perhaps a couple more. Right now, the certificates that we offer are employee benefits, estate planning, and state and local tax. And you can obtain those while you're getting the MT or the LLM, or you can take those as a separate standalone certificate. And Tim, we could jump to that next slide. So our approach to learning is probably going to be fairly different if you're a lawyer considering this program than what you saw in law school. We don't have as much of a Socratic method with just straight lecture as you perhaps would have enjoyed while you were in law school. We offer both online and in-person options for all of our core courses and some of the electives. All electives are available online. And in terms of the way we actually convey the information, we strongly believe that people are best learning when they're active participants in that education. So again, not passive listening to lectures. And we think that's even more important when we're talking about the virtual classroom. And so to implement this approach, we've created a problem-based approach to the program with heavy emphasis on no or low stakes questions and immediate feedback. So when a student is reviewing the information that they have to digest on their own, whether it's readings or pre-recorded video content, or even the information that they're learning from the live weekly session from the professor, there's immediate question and answer that goes to the students to make a determination about whether they're actually retaining the information that they should be from the whole process. Overall, we think this engaging approach is much better for conveying the information in as efficient way as possible, which is really important because we know that our student base, for the most part, are very active professionals who have a lot of other things going on in their lives, and time is very precious to them. So we tried to find the most efficient way to transmit that information to them. In addition to that flexibility and the online and in-person class flexibility, we've also moved to an 8-week semester approach. So there's 7 weeks of learning followed by an 8th week. That is the final. This allows us to have 6 different start dates throughout the year: a fall A, a fall B, spring A, spring B, summer A, summer B. And that again allows professional students to pick and choose what times of year are really best for them, especially in the tax context. If you know that April 15 is impossible, having these mini semesters allows you to plan around that. Or if you know end of year is incredibly busy, you can plan around that and never have to take a class that's going to be going on in the latter half of December. And so, Tim, we can move to the next slide. So that's just going to be the end to the mini presentation about the program. But before getting to the panelists, I just want to say that I'm incredibly excited about today's presentation. I always love chatting with our alumni, and I always enjoy being an ambassador to the program. But I'm especially excited about this because of the wealth management topic. I think that's an incredibly important space for the program and an area of growth for us. And it's also one of the main areas that I practice in my professional practice. So in addition to working here at Villanova, I still have a small practice on the side, and a significant portion of that is assisting high net worth individuals in their income and estate planning. I also do a little transactional work, but a lot of it is in the estate planning side. So I'm really excited to hear about the panelists and their disparate experiences. And we're seeing more and more interest in the program from investment advisors, financial advisors, trust officers, and other people in the financial industry. And as a practitioner, when I was doing planning and working with clients and their other advisors, if I suggested something and there was no one else kind of reviewing it and suggesting something also, it was often pretty difficult to get the clients interested and engaged in the process. But I found if there were financial advisors or accountants, trust officers, other people involved in the process who are all very knowledgeable about tax planning, and we're all working together to formulate that plan and suggest, what is really the best way to minimize the tax burden and consider the other goals, that when you had those other partners at the table, it dramatically increased the chances that the plan was going to be implemented, and also dramatically increased the chances that the plan was really the best thing for the client. And so I think financial planners and trust officers and other financial professionals and accountants and attorneys all looking to degrees like our MT, our LLM, or other tax degrees are really beneficial to all of our mutual clients. So again, really excited. I'll stop waxing philosophical about the best way to plan for clients, and I'll turn this over to our wonderful panel. And so to start, perhaps we could have each of our panelists just give a little background on yourselves and then tell us what you're doing in your career right now. And Ryan, you are the top of the list on the slide, so I'll throw it to you first. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join. My name is Ryan Ahrens. I graduated Villanova Law in 2019, and then I completed my LLM program in December of 21, so about a year ago, a little over a year. I work in at a firm called Heckscher, Terrill, and Sager. I'm right down the road from Villanova. It takes me about 5 minutes to get to campus, I think, over in West Conshohocken. My firm specializes in everything trust and estate. It's all we do. I'm one of 20 lawyers now, I think, maybe 21 lawyers, ranging from 2 years out of law school, maybe a year out of law school, to seasoned professionals that have been doing it for 40 years. And personally, I've been doing it for now 3.5. Like I said, all we do is trust and estates, but we do every sort of aspect of it that you can imagine. We prepare estate plans. We assist clients with gifting, with creating trusts. We help clients administer estates once someone's passed away. We also have a fairly robust litigation practice for fiduciary disputes in Pennsylvania. And we also do a significant amount of work with charities that are formed under trust or other nonprofit corporations. My day-to-day is a mix of basically all of that. I do drafting, I interact with clients on a daily basis, and as you can probably imagine, a lot of the work I do and all the lawyers here is tax intensive. We like to say tax isn't just what we do, but it is involved in everything we do.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, your firm has been a long-standing supporter of Villanova across the board, and Marty Heckscher is a titan in this industry, especially in Philadelphia. And Margaret Sager is a force to be reckoned with, and Jack Terrill, all wonderful attorneys.
Right. No, it's great. It's great learning there. It's learning from experienced people. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, and I should probably mention, I'm not just the president, I'm also a member here. I was a 07 JD grad from Villanova, and I was an 09 LLM grad from Villanova also. So I have a long-standing history with the program, although I just started working at it. So Liz, I think you're next up on that slide deck. You want to give us a little background about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So graduated from the law school in 2012, got my LLM in 2017, actually, while I was working at the law school. So it's nice to see there's bodies on campus these days. But I'm a vice president with Bernstein Private Wealth Management in our Philadelphia office. We have offices, we're a global wealth management firm. We have offices pretty much in every major city with 650 billion assets under management. The way that I tend to work with clients in the high net worth and ultra high net worth space is really building a team around them. So I have wealth strategists, I have investment strategists, portfolio managers, analysts at my disposal really on the national level to build that team around my clients and come up with a plan for them, for their assets, for their families, today and then in the future as well.
One of the things that's amazing about Bernstein, not only the wonderful people who work there like Liz, but your guys' research and data analytics arm is just amazing. I remember, 2 decades ago, right, when you all started publishing things about rolling grats and how, that was 100% a way that you could potentially sort of maximize the value of it. I've always been impressed with the research that comes out of your shop.
Yeah, good to grat.
Yeah. Robin, maybe we could jump to you now. Give us a little background.
Absolutely. Good morning. Thank you all for attending today. My name is Robin Whitlock, and I'm located in North Carolina. I'm a partner in a firm, Infinite Wealth Advisors. We're a little bit smaller firm, but we are a wealth management firm that we specialize in retirement planning and high net worth individuals. And I think like Brian and Liz, our approach in our firm is a team approach. I have an accounting degree, but my specialty is in individual income tax, and I have taken that knowledge in the individual income tax space and moved it over into the estate planning space, which when I was presented with the opportunity to attend school at Villanova in this particular program, I was very excited because it's very hard to find a program for someone that is a non-attorney like myself that has an accounting background. I'm well-versed in individual income tax, but I'm not well-versed on the law side. So it's very exciting to be part of this program.
That's awesome. Thank you, Robin. And, we have been very committed to that multidisciplinary approach for a long time. And again, it's, I think it's great for non-attorneys to get kind of that legal, a little heavier dose legal analysis on it. But as I said before, it just flows both ways. I remember when I was going through the program and sitting in class and we'd be talking like highfalutin, here's what the law says. And then the accountants and financial advisors be like, that might be what it says, but here's how we actually do it when we're doing compliance. And then talking about how those two things meshed is really a cool experience. So Robin, let's stick with you as we get into the Q&A here a little bit. I somewhat know the answer to this, but right, Villanova here in scenic Villanova, Pennsylvania, obviously a Pennsylvania university. You are not Pennsylvania based.
No.
So how have you found that, attending a program in Pennsylvania while you practice in North Carolina? Did you find challenges in that, or did you find that it wasn't sort of state specific?
It's not state specific, mainly because the program is a federal tax focused program. And I do have clients all over the United States. So it was a good fit. And I think at the time that I started the program, it was right at the beginning of COVID. So I don't even think I had the requirement where I had to go on campus. There may have been a requirement for once a quarter. I'm not real sure, but I know for me, it was the 8 weeks, one class every 8 weeks online, a lot of activity, and that worked out really well for me. So being that Villanova is in Pennsylvania was not a challenge for me. It worked out very well. And I was able to coordinate the school schedule with my work schedule. Most of my classes were in the evenings anyway, so it did not present a challenge. And if I was traveling, I was able to coordinate my my work travel around those classes.
Yeah, no requirement for in-person anymore, although we are trying to roll out a few things that we hope will entice people onto campus, just because it's such a wonderful environment, such a wonderful community, but absolutely no requirement at this point. It could be 100% virtual if that's what works best for the student schedule.
Yeah, that worked out really well for me because I had been in the virtual environment before, and I was a little apprehensive knowing that it was law school or law based, but there were no issues. There was a lot of interaction. I felt like I was in the class with my peers because there was so much interaction, and the layout of the program and the ability to access the professors who are also professionals in my field, that made it very, very easy for me to work this program into my life, being that it was online.
That's awesome. So Liz, let's jump to you for the next question. And I know I get this question a lot as someone who went through the program while working, but you completed this degree while you were working full time. How were you able to balance the rigors of the academic study here, plus what was a very busy career, plus personal life?
I mean, look, I think everything is kind of a little bit of a balancing act, right? I live and die by my calendar, and that's certainly the truth when I was taking classes, right? So as long as you're on top of it and you're paying attention, it's a manageable schedule. It's not designed, I think, to beat you into the ground like some programs that are out there, right? It's a focus on the real world, to your point, Steve, right? Having that real interaction with people that are practicing on the accounting and on the law side, just so you have that exposure. But it's a well-rounded program, and they also acknowledge that you do have a life, right? Outside, yes. So it's manageable for sure.
Yeah, it's the program's very different now than I went through, right? We did not have a virtual program when I was in the program, so I had to go to Villanova every night, and classes were much longer then. It was 2 hours every night, and we've done our best to sort of minimize the requirements of being a certain place at a certain time, because again, we know that doesn't always work well with people's schedules. With that being said, we have got no interest in being fully asynchronous. We think there's just too much benefit to having that live session. So there's always going to be some, requirement, but we're trying, with a 3-credit course, we're to a 90-minute period. For the 2-credit courses, we're trying to get down to a 1-hour sort of specific time and day where you have to do something. And then, we do try to structure it so people are able to be successful professionally and personally and get through the program. Ryan, so shifting gears a little bit, as an associate attorney and someone who's sort of on the beginning end of their career, have you been able to implement some of the knowledge that you pulled from this program? Has it sort of shortened the learning curve for you, or was it too high level and you couldn't use it right away?
No, that's a great question. I think, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, I think I interact with tax every single day. You might not think you would just drafting a will, but that's, for most trust and estate planners, that's a sliver of what we do is the estate planning. And even then, the estate planning has to do with tax.
The tax clause is the most important provision in the will.
Exactly. For those on that don't have much familiarity with trust and estate, there's basically 33, I think, buckets of taxes that we're most concerned about. And it's the income tax, the estate and gift tax to the extent you want to lump them together, and then the generation skipping tax. And those are all federal taxes, not to mention the state taxes that you might also have to deal with. I think the LLM program at Villanova provided me not only with specific knowledge that I've implemented while practicing in the last 3.5 years, but also just the foundation you need to know, for example, how the Internal Revenue Code operates, how the wording, it's written weird and it's written intentionally weird. And you need to know how that plays into real life and how the regulations connect to the to the code. And for the IRS, how the IRS operates, I took and I think everyone has to take a procedure course, and that's invaluable to know when I'm filing a return, what's the statute of limitations, what's the risk of, XYZ, depending on the procedure we take with a specific client and taxpayer. I think all of that is it's given me a head start. And I sort of had the benefit of having done half of my LLM classes while still in law school. So even on my first day of my job after taking the bar, I had pretty good knowledge of how things work and how to implement it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was in the same boat. I was halfway done by the time I finished. And I remember I walked into work, and the first day I hadn't even passed the bar yet. I started right end of August or something. And my mentor walks in and he just throws a bunch of stuff, and he starts rattling off like, all right, we need to draft a QPERT for this person. I need 2 sets of grats for X term. And like the fact that I actually knew what the heck he was talking about with these made up words was just, made me feel a lot more comfortable trying to then implement.
Less scrambling for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robin, back up to you. I think a lot of people, when they think about this degree, right, it's not shocking when a lawyer decides to become a tax lawyer. They rush out and they get an LLM. And for accountants who have been accountants for a decade plus and they decide they need to advance their career, the MT is a great way to do that. But in the sort of wealth management space, I don't know that people initially think, oh, maybe an MT is something that's really going to advance my career. What made you pursue this degree instead of other degrees? And how have you seen it really dovetail with your career?
Well, specifically, again, I'm a tax fan. I'm not a tax nerd. I can't cite all the codes, but I enjoy the tax piece of it, and especially working with clients.
I feel like you might have been calling us names. Are you insinuating that we are nerds?
I'm in that group.
Okay.
I'm in that group. And but working with clients on their estate planning, and as I was doing my research on this particular degree, I saw that I had the ability to concentrate in estate planning, which was very appealing to me because in general, I have some attorney partners that I work with when I'm working on estates and trust for clients, but to actually be able to sit in a class to see the inner workings of how these items work, and then also to be able to see the interpretation of the IRS or the IRC, how those work together. It was very intriguing to me, and that's mainly why I chose this program, because of my desire to further my education in the tax law realm, but also specifically in the estate planning realm where I could best assist my clients.
I was just talking with one of my students about this. I think it's such a value add, right? If you're a financial advisor or an investment advisor, for you to be really facile and really understand all these things as, one, to help them plan, but two, as sort of a check and balance against what other people are saying,
Yes.
As somebody who, as the estate planning attorney, I have some clients that I talk to every month, but even some of my very, very wealthy clients, maybe I talk to every year, less frequently even. You're there sort of front lines every single day, right? Talking
Every
with
day.
them.
Yeah, I do a lot of interface, and I will say, to your point, in recent weeks, I have had new clients come on board as a result of the fact alone that I had a master's degree in taxation from a recognized school.
That's awesome. We need to get that as like a snippet to put on the website.
Get
Results in
compliant.
immediate clients.
Yes, I have to have my compliance officer check that.
Liz, so this is the part where any of my students are on, they should stay quiet. And I'm sure if I had taught when you were here through the program, your answer would be different. But what was the course that you found the most beneficial that you took here in your wealth management career? Had I been teaching at the time, it would have been my course, of course. But,
of course. So that's actually a bit of a tough question for me because I am a few more years removed from the program. But in all honesty, I think the ones that were really impactful to me, actually international tax, I found fascinating because I had no exposure to that prior to going through the program. And interestingly enough, I actually recently was working with a CFO of a publicly traded company that had international positions. So it did kind of play in that space. But I think more day to day, it's really that holistic perspective and seeing how everything fits in together and having that totality of impact in your day to day.
Robin or Ryan, did you guys have a favorite class? We don't have to go into detail, but want to give a shout out to any of the professors?
Oh, there are a lot of great professors in this program. I mean, I can remember the classes. Wealth tax, great class. Professor Mullane, Professor Book.
They're rock stars.
Yeah, a lot of Chris's. I think we've discovered a lot of good Chris's in the program.
Quite a few of them. It's confusing to keep them straight.
Yes, yes.
I agree. Professor Mullane for wealth tax was instrumental to understanding, making sure your client's estate plan works, I guess, to put it shortly.
I have to, so I'm teaching that class for the first time in the fall, and Professor Mullane will be teaching it to the JDs, and it's incredibly large shoes to fill. I'm very anxious about coming anywhere near as good as she does in the classroom. So Ryan, this is would be interested in your insights, but not really what you've done with your career. But do you see this degree as something that someone could utilize to potentially pivot, right? If they're doing something else in their career, do you think this would be a good way to potentially help them move to a tax-related field?
Oh, I agree. I think first, avoiding the substantive knowledge you obtain, which is huge and substantial, I think it demonstrates a seriousness about your intent and your desire to work in this field. And I think professionals in this field flourish the most when they really love it. You're day in, day out of your clients' lives. You're not working for a corporation or an insurance company, or you're working for families and you're working for individuals, and this is the life that they've built, and in the successes that they've had, and you're helping play a part in that. And I think you need to understand their tax situation to understand how to serve them most effectively. And I think the LLM shows that you're there, and that you need to know the tax aspects and the tax concepts of what's going on, and that you do actually know that you know it. With respect to trust and estates, I think it's helpful. A lot of trust and estates lawyers, and I think financial professionals more generally, are the first line of contact for a lot of people into the legal world. You're there, helping them. And many people have a will, many people at least have a basic set of estate planning documents. So even if I can't really counsel on a client's corporate tax matter or his partnership tax matter or something like that, I can say, well, here's a referral for this, here's a referral for that. And I can issue spot things that I may have not otherwise picked up on had I not had the degree.
Yeah, that's awesome. Robin, Liz, do you guys have any thoughts on that too? I mean, do you perceive this as something that people could use to kind of shift the direction of their career towards tax?
Oh, absolutely. I know in my field, especially working in that estate planning realm, that is, I echo Ryan's sentiment. I mean, you are there frontline, you interface with these families, and the skills by taking the action to be able to learn more, to enhance my credentials, lets those families know that I'm serious about what I'm doing and I'm here to do the best job for them. So yes, to answer your question, yes, I think it's a great degree where you can do multiple things. You can pivot to multiple things within the profession.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Robin, and I'll actually share that's part of the reason that I went for my LLM, because I wanted to get involved in finance. And with my JD, I wanted to bolster that side of my knowledge area. So once I got my LLM, that's when I felt more comfortable actually working in the finance side of things and pursuing that as a career.
Oh, awesome. That's a great example. Robin, we've sort of touched on this a little bit already throughout the conversation with you and with everyone else here, but could you describe a few of sort of the financial skills that you really strengthened from the program, and then give some examples of how you've implemented those skills and the tax knowledge with some clients?
Well, I will say because typically I've done a lot of income planning and then doing some asset allocation with clients. But as I developed relationships with these families, they wanted more. They wanted me to do more, look at their taxes, look at their children's taxes, help them create a plan to be able to be legacy planning, dynasty planning, which is what I think was very valuable. The estate planning, I was able to come up with a few more acronyms than just the few that I had in my resources. So I think that just being able to focus on some of the like we mentioned the grants earlier and some of the different types of trusts. I've done some complex planning, and I've enlisted the aid of some of my attorney associates that work with me. So I'll lay out a plan thing, and you can't see it behind me, but I've got my stack of books that I use during this program, and I reference those books. And it really helps when I'm doing a plan for a family to say, I can tell you this is what what might be the best thing for you, but I've also got material, I've got resources, I've got websites and things that are solid, it's solid documentation to back up the planning that I've done for these families.
Yeah, I had all my textbooks and my Steve Weinberg, estate planning manual essentially kept getting stolen by other people in my office. I'd have to go track it down and go office to office to try to find it and bring it back so that I could use it.
Yes, it's funny because I have this whole stack of books and I thought, oh, they're just going to sit here on my desk. And then in recent months, there's been numerous things that I've had to research for clients, and I've had to pull these books out and match them with my online databases. I know we have access in the school, which was really great having access to Bloomberg or Westlaw or Checkpoint or LexisNexis. So some great resources that we had the ability to use during our time in the program as well. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are like way over the top with acronyms in the estate planning and wealth management field. It's like everything has to be turned into an acronym. Yes. I don't know where that rule came from, but you can't possibly come up with any new idea unless you can turn it into an acronym.
That is true. They get confusing.
Yeah. So Liz, I think Robin touched on this a little bit earlier, talking about bringing in some new clients, but have you found this degree useful in marketing yourself and your practice? And, sort of compound question here, do your clients sort of understand the value that the degree brings to the table? I know you said it gave you sort of the confidence to get into the field. Have you found it useful with business generation?
100%, right? So I do a lot of work with attorneys. Bernstein isn't a bank, so internal referrals aren't, the norm. I'll put it that way. But I do a lot of work with attorneys, and because I have my JD and LLM, they see that as a significant value add, which it is. And then they come to me too to, spitball ideas with and come up with what makes sense the most for clients. It's interesting because I'm actually, due to some SEC regulations, can't put that in my signature line. But all of my clients do know that I have those designations as well. And actually, one of my clients felt better reaching out to me because they were also a Villanova grad. So there is weight behind the Villanova name, especially when it comes to these degrees.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think Ryan sort of touched on this too, and he can chime in. Yeah, I know as a young attorney, there was just sort of with that LLM credential when I was going into meetings, and I was 24 years old or something, and I'm in a meeting with some 55-year-old financial person. There was just a little bit more gravitas to who I was because I had done that extra degree and I focused. And then in addition to that, it opened up a lot of it increased the number of speaking engagements that I had the opportunity to do, increased the number of writing options that I had, all of which helped me market myself in the field, which was hugely beneficial. People just sort of took me more seriously because of it. So Ryan, how has your approach to the clients and advising the clients, directly benefited from the studies that you had here? There are sort of specific examples from things in the program that you implemented.
Sure. That's a great question. Well, I mentioned Professor Mullane's wealth tax class. I think that was other than the intro to tax class, that was really my first substantive tax class. And I mean, it's just every trust and estate lawyer and advisors, generally wealth advisors, you need to have some idea, and especially if you're the lawyer drafting the document, whether or not a gift to a trust or a gift to whatever is going to be includable in your estate for estate tax purposes. And Professor Mullane's class, he lays it out exactly what you can and cannot do. And it's a semester class, so it's more complex than it seems. But that's something day to day that I use. The estate and gift tax exemptions are high right now, like 12,920,000 per person, but there's always clients where that's a factor and where that's important. You don't want to be the one that missed something. even other classes that in areas I don't practice in, like partnership tax, I need to know what inside and outside basis is and how it interacts. Many of my clients have interest in partnerships. Corporations, again, I'm not a corporate tax lawyer. However, I need to know that a client might have qualified small business stock, and maybe they should talk to their accountant because they don't need to pay gain if they sell their company that they started. There's certain things where it's these little nuggets of information that I've retained, or I have at least some idea that they exist, and I can issue spot and then see whether or not I need to raise something either to the partner or to the client.
Yeah, I think I had a slightly more broad-based tax practice than you did, so it was even more sort of accentuated for me, right? Because I had to do some partnership work and some S corp work. But even if you're only in the wealth space, like you were saying, so much, you need to make sure that you can do the appropriate planning and the documents, draft the documents properly, even if it's buy sells where it's more on the business side, or just your trust instruments. You're right. If you have S corps, you got to be real careful with how you draft that trust language. So it's all so interrelated. You mentioned the tax procedure course beforehand, which again, I do a little bit of controversy work, not a ton, but even if you don't do any, your clients are going to get audited. Things are going to pop up. You need to understand sort of the specifics on all of that. So far, we haven't gotten any questions from the people who are participating in this. Tim, have I missed any, or is there nothing popping up?
No questions just yet. So we definitely are available for if there's any specifics that you have for our panel. So if there are any, we're happy to transition to that part as well.
So as we give the group a little bit of time, and I'm sure Tim will cringe when I ask this, but we talked about what everyone's favorite course was and who the best professors were. What was the part of the LLM program that you found the most challenging? Which class do you think was the most difficult? Tim's like, don't ask them anything negative about the program. It's all wonderful.
I think I struggled most with, and I think most people do, with partnerships. It was fascinating, and I did enjoy it. It's difficult conceptually, and I think you mentioned the accountants and lawyers being in the same room, which I think was hugely beneficial. I learned a lot from the accountants who seemed to have a better grasp on where the numbers were going, whereas I was wondering what was going on at all in the beginning. But that was probably the hardest. But you need to know it. And so you just got to get it over with. And I'm happy to have, struggled through those few weeks, with the support of the professor, who was great. And I have things that that I know now that I don't think I would ever known.
Yeah, partnerships is always the course that if someone's going to have, challenges just with the content, it's often there. And it's such a strange area of the tax law. And you mentioned inside and outside basis, but then you also have to track capital accounts, and there's so many moving parts, and the rules are so intricate, and so much of it's so complicated, right? Because people used to use that structure to cheat on their taxes effectively. And so because we had these people who were using the system, they created an overlay of insane complexity that you have to follow. And it makes it a difficult but really interesting area to work through. So Liz and Robin, you're no negative. Everything was good. You loved all of it.
Partnerships is the one that everybody kind of dreads. And I'm sure people on the listening have also already heard that if they haven't already experienced it.
Yeah, I agree. I think even though I am somewhat familiar with partnerships and I've done a few partnership returns, I agree. I think that was probably the most strenuous class.
I will put everyone's mind at ease. It's not a class that everyone fails or does horribly in en masse. Everyone ends up doing fairly well. It's just difficult content to master. But it's not like everyone walks out with a D. It's manageable in the end. So I know we're getting a couple Q&A here. We'll get to those in just one sec. But I think, Ryan, you probably took some in-person classes, but you also did some virtual. Liz, you obviously did some in-person and may have taken some virtual. Robin, you did everything virtual.
Yes, everything virtual. I will say, though, I did walk for graduation, and that was a wonderful experience. So if you take everything virtual, at least do yourself a favor and go to graduation. It's beautiful.
I know Professor Mullane and Director Petsko were all very excited when that you came back and everyone came back post-pandemic and was able to walk. It was really special.
Yes, that was a wonderful, wonderful thing.
So, the program in 2013, 2014, right, developed our online program. Prior to that, it was all in person, and a lot of effort was put in to creating a virtual classroom where it wasn't just a video camera in the background, where there were in-person students in the front of the room, and you as the online student were sort of the second fiddle, just watching what was happening. Did you feel like that online experience, did you feel some level of connection with the professor, with the other students? Or did you find some aspect lacking with that?
No, that it was very, very interactive. I mean, you felt like you were part of a real class. I mean, for one, I think a lot of the professors also made us use our video, which enhanced the whole feel of being in a class. You could see your peers, you could talk with your peers. So I didn't see any challenges with virtual versus in person.
That's what we're shooting for, and we're always trying to reevaluate and keep finding ways. I know some students might wish that they could just show up in their sweatpants and turn off that camera and look at their phone and do other things, but at the end of the day, we really want you all to learn as much as possible about the tax law, and having that interaction we feel is more beneficial. So we'll jump to a couple of these questions. First question is, just being curious, in general, how would you describe your client bases? Are they all high net worth? Are they medium net worth, business owners, retired? Who are you helping?
I'll go first. So majority of my clients are high net worth business owners. I really focus my practice on families in transition as well. So if they're going through a significant exit, maybe a sale of the family business. I also have a fair amount of individuals that are dealing with death or divorce.
Robin, you want to chime in?
Sure. My client base, I have a lot of high net worth clients as well. Families, most of my clients, though, are retired clients or approaching retirement. So that is my forte. But within that realm, pretty significant amount of high net worth clients.
Ryan?
And then similarly, we specialize in high net worth planning for clients of all types. We have clients in their 30s, just having a kid. That's usually what prompts people to get a will. At least you're in a estate plan in place, you have a kid and it gets real, all the way up to retirees and everything in between. And we really cherish the intergenerational aspect of it. We have clients as children come and work as clients, and work with them as clients, and develop a relationship that spans for decades.
And Ryan really does do a fantastic job working with clients, because I know we've had some overlap.
And I'll chime in too. So my law firm, and there's about 8 attorneys who do this type of work in the firm, really spans a gamut. So a lot of my time is spent with very high net worth individuals, but we go from what's sort of referred to as the mass affluent, people with a couple $1 million or even potentially less, up through hundreds of millions. And where they are in their lives is just like what Ryan said, just starting out, 2 young professionals having a child, through end of their lives. We represent a lot of business owners, but we also represent a lot of folks with substantial generational wealth, pulling from sort of the Wilmington market, in addition to the Philadelphia market, and obviously now all across the United States. So it's really sort of very broad in terms of what my practice has reflected in the past. Another question here was, how difficult was it to complete the JD LLM program simultaneously? And then it says, it seems like the majority completed the LLM afterwards. In a previous webinar, it was relayed that you can only join the program after the 1L year. So maybe anyone who did the joint program can talk about getting what you accomplished done when and how you finished, and then I'll chime in about actually doing it all within the 3-year period. So Liz, maybe you could take a crack at it first.
I was going to say, I actually didn't overlap at all. So.
Oh, you did the full LLM after the JD was complete?
Yep, exactly. So I had a gap there.
So I overlapped. I did half in law school, half after law school. And you're correct. I don't think I applied until my second year of law school, which was perfect because I didn't have the capacity to even think about tax in your first year of law school. You just got to focus on the tasks at hand and getting through it. And then after your first year, you start to branch out and chart your own course. I thought it was really manageable. I thought in your second and third year of law school, you have more power over the classes you choose and your schedule, which worked really well for me to choose, especially with the 8-week programming that the LLM program does now, which half of the semester it ended up being was more effective for my schedule. And usually I did the first half so that I wouldn't have as many exams in May at the end of the law school semester. Then afterwards, working, it was sort of the same thing. Trust and estate can get really busy at the end of the calendar year. And so I would usually do my classes in maybe the late spring and the early fall. But it was flexible. And I think the flexibility was really key to choose when you want it, when you were most able to complete it. But I was never overburdened by it.
So I assume this is a current student at Villanova because our joint program is only offered to Villanova students. You are not allowed to enroll in the program until after you've taken Introduction to Federal Taxation, which is offered your 2L year, currently not an allowable elective 1L year, I don't believe. In terms of completing, having a coterminus, finishing the JD and the LLM at the same time at the end of your 3L year as a law student, it is possible, but it is going to result in an overload of classes where you're pushing up against the maximum credit limit at times and potentially requiring you to take classes between your 2L year and 3L year. Most students, prefer not to do it in that compressed time frame and finishing it all by the end of their 3L year just because of the additional work. And usually they're trying to make some inroads professionally and do some other things during that 3L year. It's possible, but again, not frequently done. The other big reason that people often don't do the coterminus is because 12 credits, half of it overlap. You can count them both towards the JD and the LLM, and you don't have to double pay for those. So a lot of the time, our students will try to complete it only half, and then once they've graduated, try to convince their employer to pay for the other half. But great question. So I don't have any more prepared questions. I really want to thank Liz, Robin, and Ryan for this. It's been really great conversation. It was really interesting to learn more about what all of you are doing. I really appreciate all of your time. Tim, maybe at this point, we'll toss it back to you and you can talk a little bit about admissions. And if other questions come up from the folks who are participating, we'll stick around and be able to answer those after you do your admissions talk.
Sure, wonderful. So so we can talk about what it goes into to apply for the program. So very simple and very easy. So it's a completely online application. As part of attending this webinar, you'll also be able to receive a $50 application fee. So you will receive that as an email afterwards. We looked for letter of recommendation that could be either professional, academic, an essay of identifying how the goals of what you would be able to get professionally from joining the program. We look to have you create that narrative and explain to us. It really strengthens an application to be able to explain what it is that you're looking for and how we'll be able to provide that. We then also look for updated resume, official transcripts for any place where you've earned a degree, as well as earned 6 or more credits. And then depending on the degree itself, for those applying for the Master of Taxation, the MT, we look for either having a CPA or a similar type of professional license, having taken any GMATs or GREs recently, as well as you could also waive out of that standardized test score based on significant work experience. So that's something we could always talk about individually to be able to go over the specifics for that. And for those applying for the LLM, we look for that the JD is from a ABA approved law school. and what we have coming up. So at the time right now, the next available session that we have is our summer 23. So we're going to be closely getting to that April 1st deadline. So with that, still a little bit of time. Students definitely have enough time where you'd be able to start now and definitely be able to complete. So a lot of these things can be done electronically in terms of uploading the email, uploading your resumes, getting letter of recommendation completed online. So a lot of these things definitely can make for a quick and easy turnaround. So definitely some time now. For those in the tax field, obviously, definitely wanting to be able to complete this sooner rather than later before any approaching deadlines come up. So definitely sooner rather than later, you'll feel better once you get application. We're able to typically turn around decisions within 5 to 7 business days of a completed application. Another term that we have that also, if you think that fall 23 is better for your time frame, we also do have that application open as well. So that is also another thing to consider. And in terms of start dates, with the summer, it will be May 8th of this year, as well as for the fall would be for August 28th. So we do have 3 start terms every year. So right now we have our summer and our fall approaching, as well as spring. So definitely whenever you feel as if you're ready, there's definitely a intake session where right around the corner where you can start an application, and we're happy to help work with you on that. And just to share, so I myself am one of our assistant directors. I also do have a colleague, Catherine Coker, where she'll also be able to be a point of contact for any of us that anybody's looking for questions about admissions, application, going over the program. We're more than happy to be able to go over any questions you have and helping you along with moving along an application.
Yeah, Tim, there's 2 questions here in the chat box, which are essentially, I think, the same question. You've got a person who attended a state accredited law school in California, practicing law in California. They're asking if they are eligible for the LLM program.
So that is definitely something that we could look into. So as part of any type of transcript, we could definitely review that and give you an individual answer for that. So we can definitely talk with you in a separate occasion as well about that.
Well, again, thank all of the panelists for attending today. Really appreciate your support and getting to know each of you a little bit better. I know our prospective students and people who are thinking about this also greatly appreciate it. And I think with that, we have come to the conclusion of this webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.